Are live, disturbingly enough. I'm not Sean. We are just a minute out from starting Talking Tech. My name is Melanie Lytle. I'm the head of public services. I am filling in for Sean today as he is at another library making a technology presentation. So he'll probably be listening to this later anyway. And we have the always here and always organized and ready to go, Charley.
Yes, clearly I'm very organized. We just had a lot of craziness happen this morning.
Well, when the power goes out over the weekend, it does make Monday a little bit more exciting than necessary.
Yes.
So I think we are now at the magic time. So we'll say, please go ahead and feel free to communicate with us through chat, whether you're following us on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, anything else. And you're talking with us live. You can also comment not live when you're watching this later. And if you have a question, someone will get back to you. So do you want to lead off today, or would you like me to?
I think you could lead off today because I'm kind of doing a little bit of troubleshooting back and forth here.
Well, because you're trying to do multiple things, because that's normally what Sean does. And this was better than like a regular news feed. I got articles sent to me that were of interest to me personally that relate to technology. So I do appreciate that. And so I'm going to start. I am a big live music fan, although I kind of tend to be more of an orchestra person versus a rock concert, but I love a good rock concert anyway. So a company called Not Impossible Labs has created a vest for people who have auditory challenges, whether it's an auditory processing issue or whatever it might be, who are not really able to experience a concert in all of its amazing physical as well as auditory joy. They have one that gives you a sensory experience. So it's a little bit more than, I guess, what used to happen before, where if you stood close to a speaker or used different kinds of, they called them tricks, you could feel some of the vibrations of the music. So this is more than that. And so this company has been working on this for the past year or so. It is a haptic suit, similar to one used for virtual reality, with 24 vibrating plates or actuators so 20 are in this vest. And then there are two that one that goes around each wrist and one that goes around each ankle. So 24 total. And so the cool thing is that it involves a software program that DJs and musicians can interact with in order to integrate the suits into what they're doing. It's not necessarily that the vibrations are synced with the songs, but they're saying that it complements the music experience. So I must admit, this is very cool. I appreciate that they said that they had a silent disco at Lincoln Center in New York City in July. So just the idea of a silent disco just really cracks me up. So this company apparently has done a lot of different things. I feel like perhaps they might have been mentioned in previous Talking Techs. Apparently they have done drones with refrigerator backpacks to deliver vaccines to remote areas. A text-based service that allows those experiencing food insecurities to obtain nutritious meals from local restaurants and grocery stores. I feel like maybe I've heard of them before, and I might have been for the drone thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, could you imagine because you can go to theaters or things like that and pick up headsets and things like that. But I just like the idea of saying, hello, I'd like to pick up my vest, please. And you're strapping this thing on your wrists and your ankles. And so you can experience live music. So I must admit that absolutely appeals to me in that musical sense.
Yeah. I mean, seems kind of cool. I mean, It's just going to be odd to be a silent disco.
Well, I mean,
other
I
than
think
that point.
ideally, like if you were going to see, now I just lost. I don't know that it would necessarily work if you were going to a Taylor Swift concert, but
oh yeah,
it certainly seems like it's more like if you were going to clubs or something like that. So I mean, I think that it's amazing that we've gotten to this point. So now we can look for people wearing really awesome vests when we go to live music venues. Now, I want to see if you can somehow segue from live music venue into whatever it is that you're.
Yeah, somehow segue into how Best Buy will no longer be carrying physical movies starting in 2024.
Bummer.
I know.
I mean, I guess I understand that, but
slowly but surely, eventually, at some point, the Best Buy will stop selling anything from Blu-rays to DVDs. That's including the high-end Blu-rays, which do the 4K and all that kind of stuff. And they're going to slowly start taking away physical movie media out of their stores.
But now here's my question, because the last time I was in Best Buy, which actually wasn't that long ago, they had records.
They still do vinyl.
So they're going to sell records, but yet they're getting rid of DVDs.
Well, they got rid of CDs back in 2018.
Which I still find fascinating that they have records, but they don't have CDs.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing going on, because they're keeping physical video games and stuff. That's staying, but that's up to interpretation at some point later in the future as well. But they still have vinyl, which I mean, vinyl's coming back really.
I agree. And there's something about listening to a record that is pretty awesome. But I just, you're keeping records, but you're getting rid of these other things.
Yes. So, no more DVDs, no more Blu-rays, at least at Best Buy. Now, you can I think you can still go to Walmart and Target and all those places and still get them.
I don't know what Walmart would do if they weren't selling Blu-rays and DVDs.
Yeah, I mean, they sell mostly everything. So, right. I mean, it just really depends. But this is going to probably be the start of everything going to a digital kind of market, which I know some people are excited for, others are not. It's a very mixed bag of opinions with moving from physical to digital media.
I just feel like once you're buying rights to something, you can very easily no longer have the rights to something. I like having something physical.
I can agree. I like the physical, the collection on the wall, which people are starting not to like anymore. But
I mean, I have moved mine collections of things to Rubbermaid totes, so they're not out, but I still like having them.
I just like having the bookshelf of just CDs and DVDs and stuff like that, just to kind of show off what you have.
Well, and that's how you got to know people. You're like, oh, do they have similar DVD tastes to me? You go to their house and oh, I don't think I like their movies. Maybe I don't like them. I don't know. And boy, if you just came in on that discussion, that would be fantastic. So I don't think I can very easily segue from Best Buy into where I'm.
It was no better than me going from talking about super crazy electronic, I don't know, silence, music venue vests to
That's true. So
to Best Buy media.
If you are turning in for the super smooth segues between news items, today might not be the best day for you.
Probably not.
But we're still doing news. So I think I've now found a new place that I enjoy finding news. So this is a little bit of an older item, but I feel like I can. This one I'm interested in because if you have not visited us in person, and please do, because we're awesome and humble and have a lot of amazing machinery in our Create space, including some 3D printers. We have had students, whenever we go out into the community and we talk about our 3D printers, inevitably there is a child, or more than one, who decides to ask us what's the biggest thing that we can print. And we tell them, dimensions and whatever, but we always end up saying that, they could go online and there are all kinds of different businesses and companies that are starting to build homes or structures with a 3D printer. So apparently, in Madagascar, they have the second largest 3D printed school in the world.
Hmm.
Which I find absolutely so. The reason apparently why they did this is that they have a school building shortage in Madagascar, because there aren't enough schools, so children have to travel long distances. I feel like this is going to be something that we'll end up sharing with some of our students when we see them, because this is something that they could really um, wrap their mind around. So apparently, this school is 706 or 765 square feet. So it's not a very large building, but apparently large enough that it can. And this is actually apparently this particular one is on the land of a university, and they are using it for 30 engineering students to have classroom space. So in this case, it's not for elementary school students, but the idea is still the same, because this ended up taking 3 weeks to build. And at that point, so this is a little bit pre-inflation, it was only $300,000 to build. So half the cost went towards the printer rental and equipment transportation. So this is so the person there's a person running a company called Thinking Huts, and their sole job or plan is to reduce the cost of schools by building them with 3D printers. So so it was actually also started by someone who went to the University of Colorado, Boulder. And so she has been taking this different places to try to build different schools or raise money, because currently she rents 3D printers, so she wants to purchase one. So this is just a very cool idea and a wonderful way to talk about 3D printers outside of the realm of what most people are familiar with, like replacing a piece for a machinery or perhaps doing something hobby related, but another building application. So that is very cool. I'm kind of excited.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've always known that 3D printers can do more than just the, for say, the typical knick-knack printing and all that kind of stuff.
I was trying to get away with. I'm trying not to say that,
but it's true, because that's what most people think of it as. But for the most part, 3D printers can print a lot more than just little like desktop items and stuff like that. It's quite interesting to see what they can do. I mean, first it's printing houses, and that next it's going to be printing and making vehicles and all that kind of stuff as well.
I'd be really interested in that, in how they can apply that.
Because I mean, there are liquid metal printers that will print out full sheets. There's no need for much machining. Well, in this current stage, it's not usable yet, but it's still like testing phases, but still.
These days, that could only just be a couple of years away.
Oh, exactly. Could be very well closer to in our future than right now. So we'll see.
So I'm going to say there is probably no way to segue from a 3D printed school.
No, to now saying that the iPhone 12 will soon be legal again in France.
Oh.
So I think in the last Talking Tech that we did, I talked about how the French government did ban the iPhone 12 from being used in France for the reason of radiation. I guess the radiation standards for the French radiation, how do I say, radiation group, whatever you want to call it, said that it was too high for public consumption or public use. So Apple had to stop selling, or France forced the sale or stopped the sales of all iPhone 12s and the use of all iPhone 12s in the country until Apple could come up with a way to fix it. And Apple pushed out a new software update to where it lowered the radiation to what France considers safe levels of radiation.
So I have a lot of questions about this. Like, were
Oh,
they
it's an
looking
electromagnetic emissions test protocols.
were they looking for people at the airport and saying, please show me your phone? And if you had an iPhone 12, you had to leave it in the air. I mean, that just seems very hard to police.
Well, I'm trying to, well, it says temporarily banned the sales. So I'm wondering if you had it, they wouldn't stop you from using it. It's just that they would prefer that you don't. They didn't really say if it really stopped people from using it, but I know France was very adamant to fix this admissions thing for the iPhone 12, which was kind of interesting for the headline when it first came out.
But then my other question is, then that implies that the rest of the world is letting their citizens be having this greater level of radiation. I don't know. It's just a lot in that whole story.
Yeah. So the whole thing is now is that the update's supposed to lower it instead of from when it was up super. I guess the radiation was too high, banned it, brought it back because Apple did fix the update, or with an update and everything else. So we will see how that goes. Because it was like I said, again, interesting headline when I first read it at first. But now it's all fixed. So if anyone's watching from France, you can use your iPhone 12 again if you really have one.
I was hoping that maybe we would have. Are we not having the chat window
I think
open?
the chat, I forgot to open the chat window.
Maybe we should do that in case there are
Yeah,
people
that might be. There might be chatting over there, and I don't see it.
They could be chatting without us. So do you want to do that, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I'll go do that.
Okay. Charlie's easy. It's easier for him to walk around because we don't have someone manning the computer today. We're a little bit down on people, which happens. So on the off chance that there have been like 10 questions that have come in, we want to make sure that we answer them.
Mm-hmm.
But it also gives me an opportunity to not segue gracefully into my next story. This will be why Charley does not invite me back to fill in. Because apparently I have not looked for technology related news stories as well before. So now there are all these other interesting ones. Okay, this just makes me unreasonably happy. Parrots talking to other parrots through video chat. I don't know why this just brings me such joy. Obviously, I can't even stop smiling about this. So apparently, Northeastern University decided to do a study of 18 parrots. And they felt that some of the parrots were lonely. And so the idea is that because they were very, very social and they were looking for a way for these parrots to continue to be social and whether there was a technology intervention that would help. So apparently, according to this article, they taught these intelligent birds how to video call on Facebook Messenger. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This is just so joyful. So they spent 2 weeks teaching the parrots how to use Facebook Messenger and introducing them to potential friends that were chosen based on their size and time zone. And so then after they completed their 2 weeks of training, the birds were allowed to decide who they wanted to call. So apparently there is some human intervention necessary because the parrots had to hit something. The parrot who wanted to talk, just love this, had to hit something on their end that sent a bell to the other parrot's owner that someone wanted a smartphone. And so they had to tap. So the person so now you've got the one parrot initiating the call, and then it had to alert the owner of the other bird to get a tablet or a smartphone or whatever. And so then that bird had to touch a picture of the first bird. I'm a little confused as to how because you could call up to 2 friends and talk to them for a maximum of 5 minutes. I just feel like I got lost in who was tapping what, and what if one bird picked the wrong bird's pick. This is where I'm a little confused. But they did this for 3 months, apparently. And so apparently it worked very well for some of these parrots. Uh, oh, thank you for the response. Said you are having too much fun. Yes, I am. So apparently, in case you want to find out how this story ends, some of the birds sang to each other. Some of them turned themselves upside down. And others wanted to show the bird on the other end of the phone the toy that they had wherever they were. So apparently, this is a viable option if you have a lonely parrot. Or apparently a cockatoo. This is just absolutely astounding. So video chats can apparently, according to the researchers, are allowing these birds to have better socialization than they do just living, not really by themselves, but without other birds in their home. So I guess if you have a lonely bird, this is something you should look into. I don't know. This is just absolutely astounding. Just brings me so much joy. So can you top video chatting parrots?
Probably not. If I'm being completely honest. Let's see. Yeah, no, I cannot top the birds talking to each other over video chat at this point in time. Though I will say that recently we've been getting into more of the topic of AI replacing voices. That has been a topic of discussion probably for like the last month and a half, because people are using the voice alteration or alteration programs to make deceased actors, parents, friends, whatever it was, to make video messages for themselves and stuff like that.
I saw something. Was it Robin Williams' daughter who came out very strongly and very publicly against that?
Yes. Zelda Williams was very not for it at all, for reusing his voice for things for upcoming movies and stuff like that. If, say, Disney or anyone wanted to use him for their movies. But there are some that are very for it. Like recently, there was a video game voice actor that's passed away. But he wrote that he is okay with his voice being used with an AI filter to be reused in later parts of certain games. So if he ever needs his voice redone or worked on, he can do it. They can use his voice with free will.
So then my question is, who is getting paid? Like, is the estate of the person getting paid for permission to use their voice and modify it via AI?
I'm pretty sure. They didn't really explain if they're really gonna move it to him or his estate, or if it was still going to like his family that he left behind, that kind of thing. They didn't really express that too much. But then I also have the No Fakes Act wants to protect actors and singers from unauthorized AI replicas.
Now, see that I feel like it was just a matter of time before that was going to happen.
Yes. Looking at going on TikTok and all these other sites that just really just kind of push out content as much as possible. There's been singers and stuff that people have made, like, how would I call it? Just made like parodies of songs and things with their voices in it, and the actors never gave, or the singers or actors never gave consent to do them. So taking that into consideration, it's a bipartisan bill.
Oh, that's a first in and of itself lately.
Federal rules around likeness laws and how AI replicas can be used. It prevents the production of digital replica without consent of applicable individual or rights holder unless part of a news, public affairs, sports broadcast, documentary, or biographical work. The rights would apply throughout the person's lifetime and their estate 70 years after their death.
Okay, so then that's very similar to how copyright is handled because
Yes.
it's 70 years after.
So
I
it's
can see
pushing
that
copyright
then.
for the most part.
I can see that because that then stays in line with copyright for other media like books and movies and TV and things like that. So I feel actually not bad about that.
And then the bill includes an exception, though, for using digital duplicates for parodies, satire, and criticism. It also excludes commercial activities like commercials as long as the advertisement is for news, a documentary, or a parody.
Except you could really get into some fuzzy water as far as what constitutes a parody. Because I feel like, I mean, when Weird Al does a parody, it's very clearly a parody. I mean, I think occasionally, I don't think he's ever had like the actual artist as part of it. I think they've been like much later in time. But he's very clearly doing a parody. The tune is the same, but the words are different or they're related. Or I just feel like the parody thing could really end up being a very gray area that's very very sticky.
I'm kind of looking at something somewhere along like SNL using AI voices for parodies, and that would be just kind of like hitting the line at certain spots.
Right.
So I could totally see that being a good and a bad thing at the same time.
Because if you use the digital version of themselves during their news segment, is that parody or is it news? Because they do have real news items.
I think it's still kind of like working on the whole what do we do when this happens sort of thing, because it really hasn't gotten that much work or thought into it at this current point, because I think it just kind of got thrown onto the House floor as of recently. So,
and I mean, frankly, it's amazing that they've got that much together in a bipartisan bill even to start with. So I would be like, just take it and go with it at least to get started. So moving from potential legislation to now I'm on to space. I have a couple articles that have to do with space because space is just cool. And this just has the best headline. It's so clicky because I had to click on it because it just was so great. And the headline is, astronomer claims tying a sun umbrella to an asteroid in space could cut global warming on Earth. How can you not click on the article? Because that just seems absolutely impossible. So I did click on the article. And the answer is, and so umbrella stays in quotes. That is, I was about to say umbrella term. That was horrible. I didn't really mean to make that bad a joke. So I guess, and what this article goes on to say is, people have proposed this for many, many years. What has gotten traction, or at least a little bit of traction with this particular suggestion, is the astronomer in question, who works at the University of Hawaii Institute for Astronomy, has a more viable way of creating I'm going to go with shield, not umbrella, that could, because I guess the issue primarily has been weight. And so there are two things. He is proposing that an asteroid be used as a counterweight for this, so it would keep the shield from falling back toward Earth, and the gravity would kind of keep it rotating. But I guess the big issue, and he wrote this whole paper on it and presented it at a conference. So the issue is the large amount of weight needed to make the shield had been too expensive and really just practically impossible. So what he has proposed is that having this asteroid would mean that the weight of the shield could be significantly less. So that would bring it to approximately 3.5 million tons, as opposed to, and that makes it 100 times lighter than anyone else's previous suggestions. And so they feel that the chances of this, while still at this point not viable, in the leaps and bounds that things have been going, it makes his approach more probable, with prior concepts being completely unachievable. I just think that it seems so hard to believe that you could just put this little shield and tie it to an asteroid. You're like, yeah, that's going to work. But on the other hand, maybe it would. I don't know.
It is all current theory at this point.
Well, the fact that apparently this guy makes a much better argument than previous people, I guess that's why his paper was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. One of the simplest ways to lower the global temperature is to shade the Earth from just a fraction of the sun's light. Because the images that it's showing basically look like this kite thing attached to an asteroid. I don't know. It's clickbait, but it's still interesting clickbait.
Yes. I mean, I guess kind of rolling into mine just a little bit.
Oh, yay. We have a smoother segue?
Smoother segue.
Yes!
But imagine building a house that can suck CO2 out of the atmosphere.
Oh, wow.
So instead of using traditional concrete,
okay,
this concrete, which it's kind of concrete, but it's not concrete, it's kind of a weird in between, will use the culprit that is actually used, like for whatever cement uses in one of its key ingredients, is that's supposedly responsible for 8% of carbon dioxide emissions, is being taken out and being replaced with, it's down here somewhere. It was brine and something else. It was down here somewhere. I completely skipped over it now.
That's okay. That's
slag and brine.
Okay.
Which comes from the waste of steel.
Mm-hmm.
So taking the waste from those steel plants and making it into a concrete mixture, it's supposed to be as good as 5,200 mature trees.
Wow.
So the house that they built, which is a 1,250 square foot home,
not bad,
is supposed to have captured as much as CO2, like I said, as of 5,200 mature trees a year.
Now, I could see that being, if they could actually make it viable and affordable, I could see that in places where they're trying to build housing, particularly in urban areas. I could see that if it actually would work, and taking a waste product.
Mm-hmm.
That would be very cool.
Yeah, because they're saying, like, they're making use of the waste and everything else, so it's not necessarily just kind of like sitting there not being used. And it will start, starting to trap more of the CO2 in the air into the concrete, and it's supposed to last better around seawater as well. Actually, it's supposed to strengthen with seawater as it's closer to seawater. So it's kind of interesting to see how that will all play out, because knowing how we've used concrete for so long, and it's the same with like every other material, we've used all of this stuff for so long, and now we're pushing on to newer, better things. So
I wonder then, if it's good near seawater, would then, as you're replacing buildings in hurricane-prone areas, would you be using this kind of concrete?
Yes. So they're saying that with it being, it strengthens itself closer to seawater, it will make it better for, like what was it, last year, a year and a half ago, something like that? We had those buildings collapse in Miami and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That would help actually stop that issue at this current point in time, from what they're saying. And with, rising seas and everything else, it would also be a little bit stronger against the seawater if it does start to get at it a little bit more.
Okay, that was very cool. And it was a pretty smooth transition. Yeah.
Well, because conveniently we're talking about global warming and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of rolled in a little bit more. than
did.
it has before.
It did. It did. I don't know. I mean, I really do. So I think then it's sort of, I mean, now we're into like the sort of related. So Caltech, so California Institute of Technology, is exploring the idea of how they can collect sunlight in space and send it to Earth. So with solar cell and things like that, you're trying to get your energy when it's sunny. So this would be something that, or if you're in a cloudy, we tend to be a little bit cloudier. So the idea is that since the sun shines in space all the time, that you could get solar power from space. So they are using a special tool called MAPLE, which is an acronym that they have not explained, which makes me a little bit upset because I feel like, at the bottom of the article, MAPLE stands for Microwave Array of Power Transfer Low Orbit Experiment. And now I understand why they just have been calling it MAPLE through the whole article. So the idea is then that they're trying to use this to capture microwaves and seeing if they can't use this as a more, I don't think inexpensive is the right word. Perhaps, well, let's go with as a way to use less fossil fuels. So this article is talking about how it's beaming the energy all the way down to the lab in Caltech. And so now it is possible to send solar energy to the Earth from space. So basically that was really all they were trying to do is do proof of concept. So they're not expecting that this is going to be used large scale. They were anticipating that it would be something that could send energy to remote areas or areas that had been devastated by a natural disaster. So they had power like to run generators or, keep food refrigerated or things like that. So I don't think that it's going to be how we power our cities, but they were looking at it for more small scale. So that is kind of cool. Just the thought of beaming energy down to Caltech from space seems a little bit, a little funny, but so, I mean, there are so many different new initiatives these days for getting energy or trying to deal with some of the challenges that we are having. So can you smoothly transition from solar cells in space to whatever you have next?
Great question, and I'm going to have to answer that question with a no.
Okay. Well, we had a few that was a little bit smoother.
We had a few, but
I mean, Charley doesn't normally have to transfer from parrots doing video chat. I think he and Sean coordinate a little bit better than Charley and I had this morning.
It depends on the news articles that we can find in a day, usually. But right to repair. So the really cool bill going around most of the United States right now to repair your electronic devices is now the law in California. So they actually have signed the Right to Repair Act into law there in California. So manufacturers will start to sell or are supposed to start selling parts to help fix and also make phones, laptops, other electronic devices easier to maintain and take care of, and be able to be fixable by your own hand if you do feel suitable for it.
I will not be repairing my own cell phone.
No. But for people like me,
you could repair
Sean,
your own cell phone.
Or, some other people that I know, we could absolutely, if like I crack my screen and I decide I want to replace the screen, I could go buy the parts for that screen and replace it if I really wanted to. Or same with like batteries and all that kind of stuff. So this law is actually kind of nice because this will start pushing other parts of the country to start signing that stuff into law now, which will be really nice. At least for me and other small local electronic shops and all that kind of stuff, because it's hard to obtain certain parts and pieces without having to be a partner of said brand and all that kind of stuff. It's not easy at all.
Now, see, my next question is then does that apply to larger appliances? Because I've just been going through this, looking at a new refrigerator, and some repair people are like, well, we do these, but we don't repair these refrigerators because you have to be a licensed, whoever fixer. So I feel like that would mean that I should be able to buy whatever refrigerator I want because someone should be able to fix it.
Yeah. I mean, there's still probably going to be some companies that are going to be more along the lines of, well, you need to at least do some training to do certain things with our things and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, they're really pushing the you can repair it yourself type ideas right now. Now, mainly to mobile devices, I'm not sure if we're getting into the refrigerators and stuff just yet, but I'm sure with that being said, I'm sure that's somewhere down the line soon.
I would assume so. I understand wanting to fix your own computer or your cell phone, and those are very expensive devices and pieces of equipment.
So are appliances.
Yes, they are. More information than you wanted to know. Yes, that was a very disturbing discovery, but my refrigerator issues are a whole other topic for not now. Unless someone else wants to talk about refrigerators. So going to NASA. So I'm still in space.
Yes, space.
I realized that could be taken a whole bunch of different directions. So back in the end of September, so about a month ago or so, touching down in the desert of Utah was a sample collected from Osiris, I think it's Osiris, Rex spacecraft that NASA had launched in 2016. And it spent 2 years traveling through space to reach the asteroid, I'm going to say Bennu. I apologize to this asteroid if I have just mispronounced your name. Don't know. So the idea is that NASA wanted to take a sample from the asteroid to find out what it was made of, what kinds of secrets could it tell about the creation of the solar system. So it got there, took about 2 years. So, well, actually more than that. So in 2020, the spacecraft touched the surface and took about 8.5 ounces of material from the asteroid. Apparently, it took so much that the lid wouldn't close. I don't know why this detail is bringing me such joy, but I'm like, I feel like this is such a normal thing to have happen. You took a big handful and now it doesn't fit wherever you're trying to put it. So anyway, so after it picked up its 8.5 ounces of stuff, it started heading back to Earth. So it took so what I find fascinating is it took it 4 years to get there, but only 3 years to get back. That's what I don't quite understand. So in any case, headed back to Earth. And so it touched down in Utah about a meter away from its target landing spot. So I guess that in and of itself is also spectacularly awesome that it did that. So it made it through, coming back through the atmosphere. And so they wrapped up the capsule so it could be flown by helicopter to a clean room. So the material is now at Johnson Space Center in Houston. So there is a very special lab. I just like the article said, we're a very special lab, as opposed to an ordinarily special lab. It doesn't really make sense. Anyway, that is going to be analyzing the sample that it believes to have been almost completely unspoiled. So ideally, they're hoping, I guess, to find, and so the article talks about what they're hoping to find, and they're looking for amino acids and simple molecules. But apparently now Osiris Rex has been given a name change. So now he's Osiris Apex and is traveling to another asteroid called Apophis. Again, I apologize, asteroid lovers, if I have just mispronounced your favorite asteroid's name, but it is now off to another asteroid to collect samples and bring it back to the United States. This is very cool.
I think there was something in the news too that when they extracted some minerals from a recent, or it might have been the one that we're talking about right now. When they extracted some of the minerals, they actually got 2 new minerals that they found.
Well, it said that Japan has sent things to asteroids before. So it's very exciting.
Because there was something on the lines of when they sent that drone or whatever it was, the satellite, whatever it is, they sent it or took out whatever it was and then came back. When they studied the stuff that was in it, they got like 2 new minerals or something, I think, included with whatever they found. There was an article somewhere, but I could have lost it from like however long ago that was.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, I think that this is, I mean, it's an area that certainly we're getting into as we're looking for new minerals or different or additional deposits of particular minerals. I think it's an interesting direction to be heading. So hopefully, I would hope in the next few months. So this was about a month ago that the spacecraft, that the sample was dropped off in Utah. So I would hope over the next couple of months that we're starting to see some of the analysis. And so perhaps on a future Tech News, someone else will talk about what was found on the asteroid.
Most likely Sean more than me, but
I was going to guess that might be more likely.
Because Sean is the space guy.
Well, I think that's partially because his son is a space lover. So I think by definition, Dad has no choice.
That makes sense, I guess. So let's see. What is in the news right now? As I kind of go through some more articles here.
Well, I guess while you're looking for an article, I think Sean usually does a short advertisement of what we have going on.
Sometimes.
Yes. Well, I feel that this is a good time to do that because we are coming in on probably the last 15 minutes or so of our Talking Tech for today. So if you happen to be in our area, we have a lot of things happening over the next couple of weeks relating to Halloween. If you're listening to this several months in the future, it won't be near Halloween then. But if you happen to be listening and you are able to come to our parking lot trick-or-treat on Friday, October 27th from 6 to 7:30, we will have Gus the Book Bus and Stan the Tech Van out in the parking lot along with some other staff members under tents because we do this rain or shine. And sometimes it's rained and sometimes it's snowed. Anyway, we are out there, so you just drive in your car. Your kids or grandkids stay in the car, and we put stuff in their treat bags that they're hanging out the windows. So we'd love to see you there. Following day, the 28th, Miss Kylie has a whole bunch of different Halloween storytime programs. So if that is of interest to you, we'd love to have you sign up. This evening, if you're listening to this live and you're able to come to the library this evening, we have an author talking about Lost Ghosts of Cleveland. So we have a lot of like Halloween themed or Halloween adjacent activities coming up shortly. So we'd love to see you in the building, but we're also happy to interact with you online. So again, please feel free to drop a question or something like that into the chat if you have questions for Charley to answer, because I'm probably not answering your question. But I think Charley may have another article, perhaps, as I've been talking about things happening in the library building.
So, how would you feel if a driverless car talks to pedestrians?
Like with a voice?
More with, let's say, symbols.
Well, given I do so well with the symbols on my cell phone and my laptop, I feel like this would not go well for me, but there might be other people that it works just fine for.
Yes.
Now I'm intrigued, though.
So the company Waymo has a few ideas on how it can start communicating with pedestrians on the streets and in other vehicles, or even the riders themselves. So it is talking about how driverless cars are going to start trying to communicate with other drivers on the road and, like I said, pedestrians before, but with an LED display on the top of the car that will give symbols on what it wants you to do. So, like the example here is the little taxi with a person getting out. As someone is getting out of the vehicle, the people around know that there's someone getting out of this taxi, so that
then you
people
could use
aren't
the taxi.
So that you can either use it because it's available, or so that the driver that is behind you honking profusely because he doesn't understand that it's a robotaxi and he doesn't know what it's supposed to do other than drop off passenger and then leave. It can let the person know that it's dropping off a passenger and or picking up a passenger. It's also shown in some of the examples of, like, when it makes it to a crosswalk, it will give a sign of walk and everything else too. So it's telling also pedestrians that are walking on sidewalks or through intersections that feel free to cross because it's considered safe and all this kind of stuff. But this is not the only part that that they're working on. They're working on other ways to communicate. For right now, it seems like they're working on symbols to communicate with most everybody, which would make the most sense instead of just a robot voice screaming out of a speaker somehow, some way.
Because somehow I feel
as you're
like
traveling
a
60
robot
down the interstate.
speaker would be like if you're parked and saying,
Yeah.
person getting out. But then on the other hand, what happens when the person behind in road rage now gets out and goes and discovers it's a robocar and there's nobody for them to be angry at?
Well, they're hoping that they'll understand that it's a driverless car, but I know how that has gone before.
I'm really intrigued by this. I feel like it's a really interesting way to address challenges. I really hope they end up being successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting view. But they're only rolling it out currently in their base in San Francisco,
which makes sense.
Because bigger cities usually get that stuff first.
Well, and I think because I think you and Sean have talked about some of the driverless cars or things like that, because it's going based on, stripes on the road or things like that. And some roads around here don't have stripes. So, would we ever be able to have driverless cars around here?
Maybe. It will just, depending on that kind of stuff, it would just depend on how routes are mapped out and if anything has changed since the last time the car has been taken out.
I'm sorry, we will be stopping a mile from your house because
we can't make it there.
Right. So you have to walk down a dark road or whatever.
Yeah, something crazy like that.
I feel that's same with when you think about other robot things. Like, are you really going to be able to make it to my? Because I think about my development. There are no stripes anywhere. So that mean that all our stuff is just dropped off on the road?
I mean, if you're going through curbs, it could probably recognize that there's a change in curb sides, maybe, because of collision detection. Maybe.
I don't want it to plow right into
I could see it being like that. If it's going through San Francisco, then I'm assuming that they're probably just using line detection and lane detection kind of, and just the general cameras of making sure not to hit anything.
I would think so. And it's so hilly there too. That would be a whole different level of crazy.
The camera's consistently adjusting to make sure it's looking at the right thing.
And not having some dog in their person running out in front of the road or whatever. All right. So we have a little bit less than 10 minutes. I don't know. This may mean I'm the last article.
It could be.
Could be. All right. So earlier in September, I just love this because I love being near the ocean. So as a fuel saving measure, there are a couple companies who are experimenting with sails for big cargo ships. So sails, like, think of the huge sailboats or all these things that I was just recently in Salem, Massachusetts, taking their maritime tour where these huge sailboats in the 1830s are traveling long distances, and then this article pops up that they're experimenting with sails. So ideally, the idea is they're hoping that if these experimentations are successful, that over the next few years, a large number or a majority of cargo ships would end up getting fitted with these. So the one that they're testing is called Wind Wing. And so it can be raised and lowered to catch the wind, helping the ship move forward. So the company that is pioneering some of this is Cargill. So we know that around here, you see some of the signs. So it for those of you who are not familiar, it's a huge food company. And so the reason why they are interested is because they have to depend on shipping to get their food to various locations. They were looking to reduce pollution from shipping. So apparently, according to this article, 2.1% of the world's CO2 pollution comes from shipping. Well, so if we went to these wings and went to your cement, we'd take care of almost 15% of CO2 emissions. So ideally, apparently, companies are trying to become carbon neutral by 2050. So that is less than 30 years from now. And so with cargo ships using predominantly fossil fuels, they're trying to figure out a way to do this. So Cargill was partnered with a company from Great Britain and is trying to design these sails or wings. Looking at the photos, it is, I'm not even sure I'd go with wings. They sort of look like huge popsicles sticking up on the, well, yeah. It looks like a popsicle.
No, I could see it, yeah.
So I think sails or wings may be a little bit, I don't go with those words, but I can see where they're trying to use them. So that's not really what it looks like, but I assume saying big popsicle on a ship is not going to work either. So there are a couple different companies that are all working on this. And so it sounds like the early tests are going well. So they are studying the results. They're hoping that by 2025, half of new cargo ships will come with some sort of wind power. So that's actually not very long. So that's kind of, so they're experimenting also with how many of these wind wings they put on and how much that makes a difference. So I think this is something that we'll be seeing coming up more over the next couple of years, and
probably more in the coming months even too. We'll see.
Oh yeah,
because this seems to be like finding ways to generate some kind of power with just general wind and stuff like that, even solar, maybe even. That'll be interesting to see how that goes, because it's essentially using wind power to just generate the power for the engines and power for the ship as well. So that will be interesting.
So with two wind wings, whatever their test freighter, they cut the ship's pollution by 30%. What I'm not really understanding, admittedly, I did not fully study this article, and what they're looking at is what it's doing to the amount of time for travel. And so I guess it's doing comparable travel times.
So about typical travel time for
but what I didn't realize that some of these just take a long time. I'm assuming because of the size. But it takes so this one, they were testing it going to Brazil. They're going to send one to, where's the other one going? They're testing a cargo ship owned by Mitsubishi with these water wings. So there are these long distances that they're covering. So, I mean, it is an interesting thought. So, you very well could hear more about wind wings when you join Charley and Sean in November for the next Talking Tech. We are just coming in on about 12:30. So this is our time to go ahead and come to an end. So please, again, feel free to reach out to us with any types of questions that you may have. And we'd love to communicate more with you or have you join us online. We're always on the third Monday at 11:30. And we'll look forward to seeing you as Charley finishes up the stream.